couple Amazon basic bags, but really I'm down to what you would say, I guess, bare bones. Minimalism is a tool that can assist you in finding freedom. We already talked about freedom from fear, freedom from worry, freedom from being overwhelmed, freedom from guilt, freedom from depression. Woohoo! Okay, freedom from the trappings of the consumer culture that we've built our lives around. What would you say? Real freedom. Woo! Okay. I think I'm just looking over my notes now because that helps me to stay on track or to give you everything that I want to give you, because really I only have a couple more minutes here. Oh, some other practical tips for you, and I think you might enjoy these, is first of all, just start. And again, I know some of you have already heard this. Make 4 piles. I started 2 months before my nomad lifestyle. Why not 2 years? Because 2 years might never get me going. Remember, I've been working at this for about 15 or 20 years, moving from apartments to houses to this to that. So give yourself a time frame, maybe not 2 months, maybe 6 months, but make 4 piles, 1 to give away, 1 to keep, 1 to sell, and 1 to toss. And pull out, at 1 drawer. I want you to start in small amounts of time. I could only do it in the morning. By afternoon, I couldn't say yes, no, or maybe to anything. Like I was done looking at my stuff and trying to make a methodical decision. Have a sale, and with that sale, buy something you really need. Maybe you don't need that quick cash, but maybe you're looking to buy solar panels or something. So have a sale and buy your solar panels. Write down your why. Remember, that's what I started with here at the beginning, because why is what can motivate you in the long haul. When I'm having a time of it and I'm like, do I really want to continue this lifestyle, which hasn't happened yet, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to circle around to my why. Why am I doing this? And commit yourself to giving away maybe 1 bag or 1 box a week. Keep it in small chunks, because we don't clean up an elephant in one haul. It's gonna take a while. It took a lifetime to get where we're at for some of us. And some of you youngsters out there, you're only gonna have 1 room rather than 10 rooms. So it really depends on how much stuff you have. And I also read it's not really like in the amount of okay, I have 200 pieces of clothing and she has 20. We can both be minimalists. It's what you need in your life and what brings you joy. I've shown people, I got 15 tank tops in there. They're $3 or $4 a piece. I roll them in a ball. They're taking up the size of a pair of socks. So if I want 15 tank tops because I like color, because everything in my vehicle's gray, so I put the color pops on, so what? It doesn't matter. It's not necessarily the amount of things. It's what you're doing with the things you have, if that makes any sense at all. So I think that's just about it. I'm just going to kind of sum it up in a single sentence. Minimalism is a tool to rid yourself of life's excess. A tool to rid yourself of life's excess in favor of focusing on what's important, so you can find happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. Woo.
Okay, that's a tough act to follow. My name is Mary Foyer. I have a YouTube channel that's called Maximalist Minibus. So you might be wondering why I'm on a minimalism panel. I actually don't identify as a minimalist for some really specific reasons that I'll go into a little bit, but I'll just give you a little bit of my background. Linda and I have very different backgrounds. I have never owned a house. I've been, starving artist my whole life. Grew up in a small house with a lot of people. 7 people in a 7-room house. My parents had a room. My 3 brothers shared a room. My sister and I shared not only a room but a bed. So I got out of there as quick as I could, and I just moved into a succession of very small studio apartments. And every time we'd move, all my friends lived in these little places, and nobody had a car. Nobody could afford a mover. So every time you'd move, something got left behind, because you just couldn't take it in the cab, or it didn't fit in the station wagon that Dad let you borrow for 3 hours. So I'm used to letting go of things, okay? But that doesn't mean that I'm not attached to things. For me, and Linda hit on this a little bit, I recently, for 6 years before I moved into my bus, I'm in a short bus, so it's a 20-foot long little school bus. that I've built inside myself, and it's full of antiques. And that's because I owned an antique store before this. I lived in a very small space. The space I lived in was a loft inside my store, which was smaller than my bus. But the store was my living room. And the store was 1,100 square feet, full to the ceiling with stuff. And I had a warehouse with probably 400 pieces of furniture in it. That's a lot of stuff. For me, my relationship to stuff is that I love the hunt. I love to find things, and then I love to pass them on. So a friend of mine described me, I think this is pretty much who I am, an unattached maximalist. That's what I strive for. Unfortunately, though, when you have carte blanche to buy anything you want to buy, which when you have a store, you can buy whatever you want because you're going to sell it. I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to sell it. You buy a lot of stuff, right? So by the time my store, I had to move back east because my mom needed me, and my dad passed away. I had to go live with my mom. And when I had to close down the store after 6 years of being open, there were things in that store that had moved in on day one that I was trying to find a home for 6 years later. Okay, because it's so easy to say, hey, I can buy that, I'll sell it. And then, surprise, it doesn't sell. On the way here, I stopped in Phoenix at a Goodwill store, and I went in, I was so excited. My bus is programmed to just drive automatically to all thrift stores. So the bus turned and I went in, and I started looking at all the things I would have bought for my store if I still had a store. What I discovered was that all of those items were probably items I would still be trying to get rid of 6 years later. So it really taught me something about what, not only just what sells, but what I was spending my time and energy on. I was putting a lot of energy into buying these things, into maintaining this store full of stuff that I guess nobody wanted because it's still there 6 years later. When I grew up in Boston, and there's a lot of antiques in Boston, so I had a lot of stuff. When I moved to California, I had to pare all that down into those little cube containers that they put on a truck and move for you because I didn't want to bring a lot of stuff. But again, it's just having the stuff, like being able to say, I once owned this thing. There's an attachment there that on some levels I don't see as a problem. There's nothing wrong with stuff. Okay, that's one thing Linda and I have talked about and agreed on is there's nothing inherently wrong with stuff. You are not inherently unspiritual if you are attached to your stuff, but you're going to have a hard time living in a car. That's all there is to it. There's a practical side to the whole thing. I basically believe in being right-sized, fitting wherever you're supposed to be, being right-sized in relationship to your space, right-sized in relationship to the people around you, right-sized spiritually. That's kind of how I look at it. I just strive to be right-sized. In terms of minimalism, I don't identify as a minimalist for a couple of reasons. One of them is just visually, right? Aesthetically, I like color. If you come see my van, you're going to see textures and colors, and there's stuff everywhere, okay? It's probably a little too much for some people, but I like visual stimulation. I like unusual designs, and that doesn't really fit with what you think of as minimalism. I'm very particular about what I have in my space, but I got a lot of stuff in my space. So I'm not a minimalist from that perspective. I feel that some people have a hard time moving forward because they hear this term minimalism, and it's not just like, hey, get rid of your stuff and be a nomad. It's more like embrace this entire lifestyle, and that's a lot for a lot of people. There's a certain cultish quality to it that I think puts a lot of people off. Probably not as many people in this crowd as maybe more out in the general public, but there's a certain spiritual superiority that kind of comes with it a lot of times when people talk about minimalism. Like if you have less stuff, you are automatically closer to God, and I just don't buy that. I believe in sacred objects, and I believe that people get enormous joy from the things around them. I also don't think that people who have a lot of stuff are necessarily people who are shills of the consumer world. I think that a lot of people who hold on to them because they've experienced very deep loss in their lives. And that's really what, if you look at the psychology of hoarding, that's what hoarding comes from. It comes from loss. It doesn't come from, I love stuff, give me more stuff, And Linda talked a little bit about her emotional attachment to objects that came from her mother. That's what fuels a lot of it. And I just want to acknowledge and empower people who maybe are having a hard time letting go of stuff, that it is a process for one thing, and for another thing, it's not, you can honor and love that thing and still pass it on. There's so much joy to be found in taking something that you loved, that somebody before you loved and passed on to you, and passing it on to another person. You know, there's a lot of joy in that. And when I had
Yeah,
the
there's
antique
a lot of
store,
people
I
here.
came face to face daily with people who were like deer in the headlights because they had been left an estate, you know, and by an estate I mean a garage full of stuff, you know, a house full of stuff, things that they never asked for, that they now own and have to find a home for, and it is painful watching how crushed by that stuff they are. So if you've got stuff, it's important to find out if the people coming after you want that stuff or not, because otherwise you're just passing on a burden, you know. And so that's a good way to think about it. That's something that Linda brought up too. The other thing though is, as a person selling vintage and antique items, I also saw what pleasure the stuff brought to people, how much they loved these things, you know, how exciting it was to find, you know, the perfect piece that fit with your other pieces. And there's people who love that, you know, and I got nothing against it. I made a living off those people, you know. I have no problem with that. The joy that those people got when I would call them up and go, hey, guess what I found for you? That's real. I mean, that's not consumers, they're not buying it because they saw it on the Home Shopping Club. They're buying it because it's in their heart to buy it. And I do believe that everything has spirituality, everything is sacred. So there's no judgment if you like your stuff. You just have to think about the practicality is how you're gonna fit. How are you gonna fit where you wanna be? If you wanna be on the road, you just can't have that stuff. You can put it in a storage unit, but you know it's only $1 for the first month, right? Then it's whatever, you know? I've been to a lot of storage auctions, and I've seen a lot of people paying $60 a month to store laundry, some games, maybe like a really antiquated computer that is completely obsolete. They're paying $60 a month to store it because at some point in time they thought they needed that thing, and maybe they. But when you build a vehicle for yourself, you set up the way you want, there's things that are going to need. You know, I also just gave a bunch of my tools to the free pile over here. So just, you know, like Liz said, you don't need to say everything. Just be aware of what you're actually using. It's the same with anything else. Like, how long has it been since I've used that tool, and could I rent it if I needed it? You know. That's basically it.
Good answers. Have another question coming in?
Hello, my name is Eve, and I live in cold country, you know, cold country plus warm country. I could never give all my stuff away. I couldn't, and sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, so I have to keep my stuff. And then, because my work, I am a speaker plus a singer. I need the clothes. What do you suggest?
Well, I live in Massachusetts primarily, so I get you on the cold thing. But you don't probably need as much of it as you think you do, but you need what you need, you know, and you just got to figure out how to fit it. I mean, you have two choices: get rid of it or figure out how it fits. That's really the only two options you have. Or else you can stay where you are. But if you're looking to move into a small space like a vehicle, then you just got to figure out what makes it work. I mean, I've got 3 different heaters in my bus because I left and it was 11 degrees. Okay, I just drove across the country, and you know what? The thing is, I was surprised that I still needed a heater here. So go figure. It's not like you can live without it even here. You got to have what you got to have. You got to have what you need to make your livelihood. But if you seriously think about it, again, we go back to if you haven't used it in 90 days, if you haven't worn it in 90 days, it might be time to say goodbye to that because you probably don't need as many things as you think you do. No. Okay. Imagine that. A first.
Yes.
I think this might be another whole big topic in itself, but since you've lived down the road for a while with minimal amount of stuff, any suggestions on organization, what not to get, what worked, what didn't? I know it's a big topic, but.
Well, I have an MO in my SUV now, and I did it in my car also, is that I was only gonna take as much stuff, that I only have about 5 things in my car that I have to move one thing to get to something else. I'm not traveling around with piles of stuff that I have to toss to the front seat and move to the back, and that just, my brain is way too chaotic for that. So as I downsized, even I kept that in mind, you know, that if I started, that, Linda, you can't take this because you're gonna be stacking this on top of this. And so that was my way to let go. And it also creates freedom for me within inside my nook or my nest, because when I get in there, I'm not moving anything around, so I'm living that freedom of no stuff around me. And that's a mental thing as much as a physical thing. You know, that's creating space in my head for some of that, of what we went, you know, the list that we went through. Does that help at all? You know? So you just have to keep, and it's baby steps. That's why I said I made the pals and it was 2 months. I stared at pals for a month and I kept moving them around. Oh no, I want that. No, Linda, you don't need that. You know, it was a back and forth process. It didn't just go like black, white, yeah, everything. Okay, woo woo, steps, you know, piles. No, I had to keep looking at it every day. Linda, you don't really like that tank top as much as you think you do. Okay, that's gonna go to the giveaway. Oh, it has a spot on it. Well, you shouldn't really give it to the Goodwill with a spot like that on it, even though you loved it and you put it underneath a shirt. You know, just throw it away. So, you know, I had to keep talking to myself for a while about my things.
Linda, am I correct that you're gonna have your vehicle here tomorrow? I thought you were doing something else with your vehicle, that the people could come and see.
People can come see either of us today.
Okay, do you wanna talk about that?
Well, I'm doing stealth camping tomorrow, but you know, this is kind of a wrap up here, I think, right?
Yeah.
That if y'all wanna walk down, we're in the volunteer parking lot, and you can come down and go, and if you lean towards Mary, that's good, and if you lean towards me, or both of us, we're just gonna hang on down there, and you can see some of the organization and some of the way that we live our lives with as much or as little as we want.
So can you describe your vehicles, the colors, and approximately where you are camped?
Sure, and you can actually see, I call her Happy Haven, okay? I haven't lost my mind, I don't think, but if I have, it feels good. And it's in the far right corner, they're way in the back there, and it's a silver Toyota Highlander. I'll have a big sign out that says Serene and Simple Life.
And mine is a little blue-green school bus that's on this end of the parking down.
So on the
lower
opposite
level,
end.
down there.
So the way you get to there is where the pre-event was. Go out, go down, make the first right, just past the stock pins there, and it'll take you down to a large parking area. And then that's where the volunteers are camping. Yes.
Okay, hi girls. I moved recently from Texas to Colorado and sold my house after 27 years and moved all of the remaining stuff that I wanted to keep in a vehicle and a half, and sold stuff on Facebook Marketplace and wherever I could get rid of it. When I got a new place to live, one of the things that I missed most was extension cords and power strips. And I had about 8 or 10 power strips that I had on Facebook Marketplace, and I wanted $8 or $10 for all of them. And I couldn't get rid of them. But you know what those things cost if you actually need one? Can you think of things that you got rid of as you were becoming minimalist that you really wish you had not gotten rid of?
I've bought a lot of electrical things in general since I got rid of all that stuff, and I got extension cords. I got pigtail extension cords for when the extension cord isn't quite long enough. I got extension cords that go to the cigarette lighter port. I got extension cords that go to my solar thing. I got all different kinds of electrical, but I wouldn't have known what I needed until I was in the vehicle. So I don't necessarily miss those things, and some of those I didn't need when I was in a house, or I wasn't really in a house, but when I was in a building.
I can't think of anything, truthfully, on, where do we go? Oh, okay. I can't think of anything that in the last 17 months that I'm like, boy, I wish I needed that, or that I had to replace along the way. But I'm one who did a lot of emotional detachment of things, letting go, covering the daughter base, the am I going to use this space? And remember, I still have 20-30% that I want to go back in that storage and go through too. So there was, I think I hit a wall right before I left on September 15th, probably a week before, and I was like, I can't look at anything else and make a yes, no, or maybe decision. So I don't know, I'm kind of tanging here, but on the road for the last 17 months, I don't miss anything because I don't even know what it would be, at this point, and there was a couple ouchies along the way. I threw them in the bag and said, Linda, you didn't sell it, nobody wants it, just give it to Goodwill because it's going to go to somebody who does want it. And so that was the way in my heart to let go of stuff.
I also think it really depends if you, like Linda's got really a no build, right? I have a build. I have furniture, I have an armoire, I have a dresser, I have a vanity that has a sink in it that my water goes in. There's things I needed to put that together that I actually acquired after. Some of the things were things I had that I gave up. Some of them were things that I never had that I had to pick up. But if you're doing a no build like Linda, then you're obviously gonna miss less.
Good question.
Yes. My name's Tina, but I just recently, in the last 2 years, started thinking about what do I need all this stuff for? And why am I living the life that I'm living? So I didn't even know this was going to be happening when I left on a road trip. I got myself a camper van. I climbed in there and I said, what is my life going to look like? So I know that when I make my way back to dark, cold Michigan, I'm not going to stay there. And I need to clear out what I own. And I need to simplify, and whatever doesn't fit in my vehicle is not going with me. So the question I have for you, or maybe even people here in the audience, is there a resource out there somewhere where there is a list, maybe a list of basic things that you need to survive when you're living the kind of life that I'm looking at living, so that I know what not to throw away in the first place?
So if you go to Bob Wells' YouTube channel and you look up essentials, Bob and I, about 4 years ago, did part 1 and part 2 of essentials, and that will give you a good base.
That's very helpful.
But I think also, I just want to add to that, is your essentials might not be my essentials. Like I have, and they're a little, and how big are they? I have 15 little clippies of things I put in my hair just to make me feel fresh and cute and different, And so you might only need 2 clippies, Yeah, so it's there's going to be gray area there too. You have to figure out what it is that you can live with and what you absolutely can live without.
I do have a whole house full of things, so having some kind of a list will help me get started.
Hi, I'm KT. My question is about the things that you need to get rid of and are unable to. So I have a minivan that I've just had a ball building out, and it had the stow and go seating, which I took out 4 seats. 2 of them sold, 2 of them have not. I have a home and a husband in the Midwest, so they're in storage in the garage there. But assuming that they don't sell, assuming those seats don't sell, what would you do with them?
I'd give them to a scrap place.
Would you?
Yeah, because you can only sell what you can. I had this problem closing down a store. I can't even tell you how many things I gave away. Things I sold everything as cheap as I could, and then I gave it all away. And some stuff got scrapped. And when I took the seats out of my school bus, they went to the scrap man because nobody buys them.
Okay. Thank you all. This has been very interesting. Thank you. The 2 of you did a great job. Okay, so we'll call this one finished. Thank you, everybody. If you didn't hear this, we're going to start announcements at 9:30 in the morning, not at 9 o'clock, because we just don't think we're going to have an hour's worth of announcements, probably not even a half hour. And then we'll start our day's activities after that.
Give us 5-10 minutes, we're going to go down to our rigs.
So they asked for 5 or 10 more minutes, and they'll be down at the rig, down at the lower parking lot. They call it the third level parking lot here. And they'll do a show and tell of their rig and their minimalist or not minimalist lifestyle.
Please remember that I just drove 2,800 miles, so don't judge my house. Mine is in blue. It's the only blue-green short school bus down here on the far end of the lot. And Linda's is the far right silver Toyota Highlander, right on the corner, the opposite end. Yep. So you might have a little hike.
All right, well, please like, subscribe, and share the video. I think this is pretty much done. So the subscribe's down there. It's if it red, you should turn it gray, and and then the likes, and yeah. All right, well, appreciate it. You watching. I know it's kind of long and boring listening to these talks, but thank you for staying tuned. So yeah.